Hello, I'm your hot queer professor today. I'm just kidding. My name is Jason, my pronouns are he, they, and I graduated from Sarah Lawrence College with straight A's, and I'm here to tell you how you can too. So I just wanted to give a disclaimer that this was not possible without the support of my community and my friends and my professors at Sarah Lawrence. And because of the support that I received, I am now an admitted NYU student, which I never thought I'd be able to say that, so that's really cool. So I just want to preface this video by saying that the learning experience that you have is really beneficial and very important. And it's actually, I would argue, even more important than getting, good grades. And I just want to say, for those perfectionists out there like myself, you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be consistent. So when you're, showing up to class, you don't have to you don't want to slack off, but you don't want to be working at 110% every single class and every day. That's a lot, and as someone who's autistic, I need downtime, I need time to breathe. So you don't have to be working every single minute of the day to get those straight A's. You can just do a little bit every day. Okay, when I first got to Sarah Lawrence, I would wake up at 6 a.m. and I would be at the library at 8 as soon as it opened. And I would stay there, all day. And then at 4, I would go home. And then between 5 and 6, I would have dinner. And then 7 to 8, I would exercise. And then 9 to 10, I would watch a movie and then go to sleep. So I wasn't working all the time. If I needed to get extra hours in, I would just work from 8 to 10, 8 to 11 if I needed to do work, go to sleep, and then I would wake up at 6 a.m. and then I would just immediately start working, which I don't know how good this is, but I would wake up at 6 a.m. and I would just work until I had class, which at Sarah Lawrence there's no classes before 10 a.m. I don't think. So I would just work until I had to leave the house. So it's you just have to find your balance and you have to figure out when you work best. For me, rather go to sleep early, wake up early, because it tricks my brain and it's ooh, I'm getting ahead of everyone, I'm even in high school, which I'll make a separate video, I would wake up at 4 a.m. and do all my homework in the morning because I would do a little morning routine, right? Brush my teeth, get myself ready for the day, and then I would work immediately. And it's that worked for me. I don't like to stay up at night, with my eyes drooping and falling asleep. I don't like that. That's not very cutesy. I don't like that. It makes me feel miserable. Now let's get into business. In college, you're gonna have a lot of things going on. At Sarah Lawrence College, there was really nothing when I went there. I was there before the rebrand, before the campus center. So there was nothing going on. It was dead. And everybody would just work themselves to death every day. I was there for the campus center though, when they built it, and I did get to experience it, but I was there when the pub was still a place to eat, not a hub. Now it's a hub for student clubs to be, because the original student center is really inaccessible. Bates, I hate, it's too much. But yeah, so anyways, if you go to a regular college and not a, small liberal arts school where nothing is happening, you're gonna wanna get a planner. There's a lot of planners out there, I know. I don't know what the best planner is, but I use a Moleskine and I get the undated planner because sometimes I skip weeks because there's just nothing happening. But you can get any planner that you want. Yeah, this planner has not been very used, unfortunately. So anyways, I would get a planner, any kind of planner that you want. I like this because it has, on one side, it has the days of the week, and on the other side it's blank. So the blank is where I write all my homework, when they're telling me instructions. And then I keep track of my YouTube videos on the side by listing the YouTube videos. So that's what I use. I use a Moleskine planner. You can use any planner that you want. I also use Google Calendar, and I put all my classes in there. And then for me, I'm a very visual person, so I need to see a 3-block time and be yes, there is enough time for me to, write this essay or plan this essay because there's a 3-hour block. I need to physically see it because I'm autistic and I have ADHD. So when I, am told 3 hours, I'm oh no, that's not enough time. But it is. You can see a block in your Google Calendar and you know that the time's there. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is study spaces. So for study spaces, everybody studies best somewhere different. Some people study well in their room, other people need to go to a library, other people need to go to a cafe. You just need to figure out what works for you. So for me, in the beginning, I knew I cannot study in my room because I love my bed. I'm like, I love you, bed, I want to be with you, and I don't get out of it. So I have to physically go to another space. During COVID, I would just study in my living room. I had a desk in the living room and I would study there. When I was on campus, I was able to, study in library study rooms, which I really hate because I don't like being confined and feeling stuck and like no windows, like harsh lighting. No, I don't like that. I need to study in like a cozy space. Basically, yeah, like I couldn't study in like a library study room because it was like this white room and like harsh lighting, and I would have like meltdowns, and I didn't know that I was autistic at the time. So I was like, what is going on? And I told my professors, like, I cannot study in those rooms. So they were like, you just got to find somewhere else. So I would mostly study in the library, first floor, in the reading room, because in the reading room there's a big window, and I would just like spread out on a table, or I would go in the main room. You just have to try different things. So if you're new, you're freshman or first year going into college or university, I would recommend like the first month just like trying different places and accepting that not every space is for you. Now I'm going to talk about, so this section is going to be really beneficial to Sarah Lawrence students, or if you go to a small liberal arts school or somewhere with small class sizes. This is called Mastering the Seminar. So for the seminar, it depends who your professor is, it depends how they structure the class. But typically for every seminar I was in, I would collect quotes and I would write my thoughts under the quote. So you can also use a notebook. I used one of those plain Moleskine notebooks. Let me see if I have one. Okay, so this is my creative notebook, but you can use a plain Moleskine, blank page. I really like the blank pages because you can write wherever you want, and I feel like this kind of notebook decreases anxiety for me, because it's just like your space to do whatever you want. So you can write like, your like a part of the quote down with a page number, and then writing your thoughts underneath. And I think that's a great way to engage with the material. Another thing that you can do, what I did was I would write my quote, and then underneath the quote I would say, all right, what do I think about this quote just looking at it, not looking at anything else? And then I would say, and how does it fit into the reading? So, and I would just write all those thoughts down. Write it whichever way makes sense for you. But that's what I would do. And like when I first got to college, so I never had a laptop growing up. I had like a PC, but that was about it. Living with my mom growing up, we couldn't afford a laptop. So when I started using the laptop, it was very difficult. Like when I would try to write essays, I could not for the life of me like engage with the material or think. So I would have a notebook on the side for my essays, and I would write out like my thoughts, and then I would translate it, put it onto the laptop. So there was definitely a learning curve having a Mac. I'm very thankful my dad got it for me, like thank God, but it was very difficult for me at first, and I was like, what am I supposed to do, handwrite all of my essays? So I would just write like sort of thoughts, and this is another thing I do is I give myself fake deadlines. So so if they give me 2 weeks to write an essay, I'll say, all right, the first week I have to have the essay done, and then the second week is just all editing and like fixing grammar, adding more, like whatever, because that's the way I work, is I have to write everything out to figure out what I'm thinking, and then I can like structure it, and like, so if that's what you do, then do that. Another thing for writing papers is like writing them out of order. So, we write conference papers at Sarah Lawrence, which is a 15 to 20 page independent research paper. It could be analytical, it could be historical, sociological, like whatever it is. So I would give myself like the rest of like another week to like flesh everything out. It's hard, writing an essay, and you don't have to do it in order. You could write about what you're most excited, the section that you're most excited about, and then come back to it. Like you don't have to write it in order. I know in high school that's kind of how they taught us, and like, when you're doing a timed essay, you have to go in order, and that would like, and I always had a piece of paper on the side so I could write about connections I made or like things I want to talk about later. So you might want to do that. Also, mind mapping is wonderful. Love mind mapping. I can make a whole video on mind mapping if you want. The other thing is for the seminar, when you need to read a book a week per class. That is insane, and you're going to need time to do that. So what I would recommend is reading the top sentence, picking out a quote, and moving on. So that's what I would do for my queer studies. I did read as much as I could, and I would do topic sentence, quote, move on. Or like I would have, on the computer or whatever, I would write like, let's say, history of queer, history of fairy, and I would write like the page numbers that discusses that. So in class, when she goes, okay, let's talk about fairies, I go, I know the page that I'm on, and then I can pick one of the quotes that I wrote down and talk about it. It really depends on the class, because in my Black Trans Studies class, my professor would always direct us to a paragraph or a topic and say, let's talk about this. So mine, where I had all the quotes, I would wait for someone to finish, and then if my quote connected with theirs, I'd bring it up and I would say, oh, this connects with that. Or I would say, oh, I understand what you're saying, but I would like to introduce this new topic, which you can do. It depends on the professor. So again, just like reading a topic sentence, picking out a quote, moving on. Also, putting a page flag and writing like fairies whenever a new topic is introduced. Fairies, queer, whatever you want. Or you could write them down in a computer or in a notebook and write like fairies and then like parentheses and the page numbers. Whatever works for you. There were some people in my seminar who would put like big post-its on like pages and they would just write their thoughts. You can do that. It depends on what works best for you. I'm someone who's very I like everything in one place, so I would put everything in a document. I wouldn't have, oh, my thoughts are here, sporadic. I would put everything in a Google Doc. But yeah, you can put post-its and do whatever you feel is best. You could do both. And then what I would also suggest is making 3 connections with your readings and summarizing them. So let's take the book Boots of Leather, Slippers of Gold, which is about lesbians. And let's say that we're reading that now, but last week we read the comic Dykes to Watch Out For. So you would say, okay, Boots of Leather, Slippers of Gold is about lesbians, right? But what are they saying? So you can list 3 things that they're saying. And then you can list some things and connect it to the past book. So you could say, well, I'm studying about lesbians, right? And how there are lesbians, like he, him lesbians who medically transition, have a male transition, but still feel like they're lesbians, okay? So then you're gonna say, all right, in Dykes to Watch Out For, there is a non-binary lesbian that I wanna track, and because I tracked their transition, I can talk about it and say, well, if we looked at Dykes to Watch Out For, there was a non-binary lesbian who was transphobic at first, but now is accepting. How does that connect to today's book? So you want to always be making connections between today's reading with last week's reading, especially if you're in a class with a professor who wants you to do that. So I would say, summarize the text, couple bullet points, and then connect it to past readings. Or if you have a book and then 3 sources, connect everything together. Say, how does this all connect? And bring it up in seminar, and you'll see, you will do well. So in some of my classes, they assigned a book a week and assigned 3 sources. And you don't have to read the sources. You can just say, I want to take these bits and pieces and connect it to the main reading. And you will get an A. I got an A by doing that, by doing all the extra reading. And now, this is between you and me. I am severely, so I'm neurodivergent / mentally ill. And I could not for the life of me get to class on time if it was in the morning. But by doing the extra readings, that boosted my grade up, and I was able to get straight A's even though I was 10 minutes late to class every day. And I wasn't 10 minutes late to every class. For my queer studies class, that teacher is really strict, so I would make sure I was early. But the other professors, I'm oh, they'll still love me, they'll forgive me. And it wasn't my fault. I was unmedicated, I am autistic, I have ADHD, I didn't know how to deal with it, so it's my own fault, and I do take responsibility for being late. So if you are one of my professors, I am so sorry that I was late. I do respect you a lot. And I think me doing the extra readings showed them I respect you, I appreciate you, I'm a serious student, So just always do the extra readings. If you have a job and you can't, again, just skim through it and be what can I say? How can I make a connection? So if you don't have a lot of time in your day, just be how does this connect to the main reading, And just do that. Just talk about how it connects. Or if there's something you find really striking, very interesting, talk about it. It's fine. So this is advice for those of us who are doing research. Maybe you're at a school where you need to come up with a research idea. Maybe you are working on your thesis. Maybe you're a Sarah Lawrence student and you have a conference project. Lots to do. You want to be thinking about your research. So I had a list of possible ideas. Sometimes I didn't know. Like when I first started my queer history, queer studies, I didn't know what I wanted to study. I didn't know I wanted to study transmasc people. So I wrote my paper on Adrienne Rich and her poetry. She's a queer Jewish poet. And it's like, does that have to do with transmasculinity? No, but it was still life-changing as a Jew to read her work. So, you know, sometimes your professors can guide you. You could say like, I'm interested in like queerness and Jewishness and I want to write about poetry. They can help. So you just want to have an idea of like what it is you want to study. You don't need to know the exact thing, but you do want to have a list. So keep a list. Just keep a list. You'll thank me later. And it could be like a really long list and then you figure out how to work it in, you know? Like I came into my film making class and I said, I want to make a documentary on transmasc people. And he was like, yeah, go ahead. And for the film class that I took, you know, the conference project was just an extension of the class. It was just like, edit this scene. But I took it a step forward and said, no, I'm gonna do my own independent project. And what happened was my scene got very messed up because I couldn't find the clips and everything was like really slow and spotty and it was just not good. But because I did my own independent project where I wrote up the questions, I did the casting, the set design, I baked a cake for it, like I did the lighting, like I did all these things and I did have help. So if you're a part of my crew, thank you for helping me. And I was able to make this project come to life. You can watch it, it's on my website. But it's like, my conference project sucked, but I did this extra project which boosted my grade. So you always want to be doing more and you want to be putting your best work out there, you know? And it's like if you have a hiccup, if something goes wrong, just talk to your professors, like figure out what you can do to like get that coveted A+, you know? Okay, for citing sources, this is just like extra knowledge for you. Use EasyBib. When I was in high school, EasyBib didn't exist, so I would sit with the librarian and we would read the MLA format together. Now EasyBib exists, so you can generate a bibliography works cited page, and you can also get in-text citations, so use EasyBib. Now, I want to talk about self-care. So find out the time that you like to work out. Maybe you want to wake up at 6 a.m. and work out then. Maybe you're like me and you wanted to work out when the day was over and everything was getting shut down, like you were done for the day. If your school offers a gym classes, definitely do them. I did some. You don't need to do them to graduate. They tell you you do, but you don't. And you know, mine was around like 5 to 6. And I did Pilates, and it was just a nice way to get out of the house, like in the winter. Yes, it sucked running up that hill in my little workout clothing to do Pilates, but being in a new environment was very helpful for me because it gave me a sense of community because I was with a whole bunch of people, and it gave me a structure, a routine. And it really helped me during my breakup. Like every day I would be like crying, but I would go to Pilates and that was like my hour to just like focus on myself and not think about anything. And it was very helpful for me. I also don't do work past 9 o'clock. So I know I said like 7 I would start watching a show. If I needed to do my work until like 9, I would work till 9. And then I would just do my own thing. I try to go to bed between 10:30, 11, and I would wake up at like 6 a.m. And I think that was the best for me. Because when I was struggling the year prior, I would wake up at 10 and then the sun would go down at 5. So I was getting no sunlight and I was really depressed. So just like wake up earlier if you can, you know. And then also on Friday, so on Tuesday night to Wednesday night, I would do no work because that's when I would see my boyfriend at the time. So Tuesday night to Wednesday night was his time. And then Fridays I don't do any work because that's Shabbat. I used to go to Hillel, but then when I learned that Hillel was a Zionist organization, I stopped going. But I do my own thing for Shabbat. Like it's not very, like it doesn't follow like a religious household, you know, version. Just a reminder, you are not your grade. grades. Taking breaks and having fun is necessary, and I don't regret taking breaks. I don't regret every Tuesday night to Wednesday night not working. Like, that was my time to be with my loved one, you know, and it's important to give time to your loved ones, and it's important to like spend time with your friends, like join a club, you know. At my school they did have clubs, which I kind of regret not joining, just because like it's a very isolating experience there. But it's like, what can you do? I did start my own club, I did, which is very stressful because my club involved cooking, buying groceries, like it was a lot. It was a lot because it was a vegan club, and my goal was to provide food to food insecure students, and I was cooking the food myself, transporting the food myself, tabling for hours, and it just like wasn't good. And yes, I got straight A's with doing all of that. So, but it was crazy. It was a crazy time. So I hope that you learned something from this video. I know it was more rambly and talky than like a structured like how-to video, but my goal is to really like connect with you guys and like form a relationship. You know, like I want us to be invested in each other's like safety, joy, you know, academic journey, you know, whatever. But thanks so much for hanging out with me. My goal is to like make a video every week. I also post to TikTok, just like queer and trans thoughts, mostly. It was fun hanging out with you guys, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.